This is okay. Just quickly, one of you, can you confirm that my slides are visible or not?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so let us start. So these are something which we have covered as a part of this semiconductor electronics module. So in the last class on Thursday, we roughly started from this particular slide, which is related to the Brevis lattice. There are 4 different Brevis lattice are there. Then bond model, and so primarily we discussed that how the bands are forming in solid state materials. So where we have started with the basic concept of quantum mechanics, that is wave particle duality, and where we have considered that hydrogen atom being the simplest atom. So where we have one proton in the nucleus and one electron in the orbit surrounding the proton, and using that we tried to understand how the wave this radius, that radius of your orbit, as well as the your this momentum of your electron, and the total energy of electron is getting quantized. That means to have bounded electrons within this atom, within this hydrogen atom, so the radius of the orbit, then momentum of this electron, as well as the total energy of electron has to be quantized. So it cannot take any radius or any momentum value, as well as any energy value, when a particular electron is attached to particular nucleus or part of atom. So that means when a particular electron is not a free electron, so then we have this quantization. So in case of this hydrogen atom, we have derived this that it is actually how this is, it is getting quantized, and how the this primary or this first orbit is having of 13.6 electron volt. So then so we have also concluded that these are the discrete or quantized energy level in case of hydrogen atom. So where this is the 13.6, then we have the 13.6 divided by 4, 13.6 divided by 9, which is obviously the integer multiple and the square of integer multiple. So then above this equals to 0. So here essentially the electrons are free electron, which can have any energy level, any energy. So following that, now if we consider any atom which has atomic number Z, so then in that case its nucleus will have this positive Ze charge, and then it will also have this discrete energy levels. So now in these discrete energy levels, the point we are discussing last time, so the material which we are discussing here is the solid state material. Yes, any comment? Yeah, please mute your mic. Someone's mic. Yeah, thank you. So now, if we consider a material with atomic number Z, so then, well, so here we are discussing the solid state material. So the solid state material, where we know that essentially we have lot of atoms, and they are bounded, you know that this one particular atoms, in case of this cubic crystal, so you have one atom, then the other four neighboring atoms. So there are essentially lot of atoms, and they are bounded to each other. Now the thing is, in case of this solid state, the atoms are fixed at a certain position. So the distance between two atoms, which is called lattice constant, and essentially, I think depending on the distance between two atoms in solid state material, all the material property will change. So what is the distance? Typically, in case of silicon, the distance is 5.43 angstrom. So now for other solid state material, this distance is different. And if we anyway, this is one of the primary reason, not the it's like one primary reason. So this distance between two atoms will decide all the other material property. So now coming back to this concept, so these discrete energy levels are valid when we consider that single atom. So single atoms has let's say ZE number of photons, which are positively charged, and then we have discrete energy levels. Now, if we just consider that if we bring two atoms, like here we are considering two same material atom which are far apart. So then essentially this particular atom will not see any effect of this atom. So in that case, these discrete energy levels will all remain intact, no change. However, the things will start to change when the distance between two atoms will be smaller and smaller. That means when we'll bring these two atoms closer and closer, then this atom will see the effect of this neighboring atom, or as well as the vice versa. That means this atom will see the effect of this atom. And the effect is nothing but that Pauli's exclusion principle, which says that no electron, no two electron will have exact same quantum number. No two electron. Okay. Now here one interesting thing, just I mentioned that when this atom will be close together, then it will see the effect of each other, and then there will be this Pauli's exclusion. Again, essentially the Pauli's exclusion, due to this Pauli's exclusion principle, what will happen? So this discrete energy level will get splitted. So that means maybe see when we'll have this kind of atomic arrangement in three-dimensional crystal, so then another energy level will come here. So let's say so it will not be exactly 13.6 if you just what we have calculated theoretically in case of a single atom. So because we need to follow or this we need to follow this Pauli's exclusion principle. So then there will be another this energy levels here. So when we are bringing two atoms, now you can understand when we'll bring, like we need to consider so many atoms in this particular crystal. So in the particular crystal we have a lot of atoms. So then not only this one energy level, so there will be lot of other energy levels which are closely spaced but different. They are not same, just to follow Pauli's exclusion principle. Now here comes the concept of band formation. Now there is no energy level or discrete energy level. From level to here, you will find when we will have so large number of atoms in the crystal. So in that case, you need to consider energy band. So there will be a band. So here also there will be lot of other closely spaced energy levels. So those are called bands. So now see why these bands are forming in case of solid state material, where we need to consider many atoms, unlike single atom, where we just consider discrete energy levels, where these are the discrete energy levels. So this is the formation of band. So another okay, so here just for your information, one interesting thing, this Pauli's exclusion principle. So the thing is, this Pauli's is when this Pauli's exclusion principle will start. That means what will be the distance between two atoms when we need to consider this Pauli's exclusion principle, and when this energy levels are getting converted to energy band. Is there any particular distance between two atoms? So the answer to this question is Pauli's exclusion principle is valid for all the time. For all the time, no matter how closely these two atoms or this many atoms are interacting together. So no matter what is the distance between two atoms, so this Pauli's exclusion principle is valid for every time. Like maybe this atom is a kilometer away than this another atom. Then also it is this Pauli's exclusion principle is valid. But the thing is, this is called degeneracy. So the distance between two atoms will be more and more. The degeneracy will be less and less. That means in that case we may not consider this band. We may work with this discrete energy level, but in case of this crystal in this solid state material, where these atoms are only this Armstrong level distance apart, so then this Pauli's exclusion degeneracy, that degeneracy comes into play, and that degeneracy we need to consider. So we cannot ignore this degeneracy because this time it is not significant. So that is why when these are closely spaced in crystal, in semiconductor, the single crystal, or not semiconductor, any material in crystal, so then we need to consider this band. So this is how these bands are forming from the energy level in case of solid state material. Now, the next point is when we'll bring them closer and closer, what will be the effect? So let me take. So from the previous slide, we concluded that there will be formation of band. Now, here I am considering carbon atom, because again this carbon atom, you know, it has atomic number of 6, and then just below this carbon atom in the periodic table you will find silicon, then germanium. So if we understand this carbon atom, the structure and the band formation and the or all other thing, then it will also help us to understand silicon or germanium, because it has the same atomic arrangement. So now if we consider this carbon atom, which has a 6 atomic atomic number, so you know from your basic chemistry understanding, so we have 1s this orbit, then we have a 2s, which can take, let's say, if there are n number of atoms, so it can take 2n number of electron, and it can also take 2n number of electrons, you know. And then we have 2p6 or 2px, y, and z. So essentially this p orbital can also take 6n electron. So now this, if we just reduce just atomic distance, so this is the how in this direction that distance between two atoms are getting smaller and smaller. So then this is a discrete energy level. So then obviously in the way just we discussed before, so it will form some band due to the degeneracy. So it will form band. So no longer is. So it will now form this band. These bands are forming due to the 1s electron. Now in case of 2s and 2p electrons, it will also form this band. I think, okay, let me bring this. So it will once again form this band. So, but here we'll have mixing. So mixing of 2p and as well as 2a's. So it will get mixed and then it will get separated. So this kind of behavior you will observe in the band formation. So now at this point, you can consider you have the lattice constant. Lattice constant means, okay, once again, these are all thought experiment. Obviously, in reality, you cannot just take two atoms and bring them closer and closer, and you can get all the data points here. So this is some thought experiment. So, but here at the lattice constant, so this is called lattice spacing, or so the actual distance between two carbon atoms. Here we are discussing in case of carbon. So distance between two carbon atoms. So essentially, this is a diamond lattice. You know this diamond that. So diamond lattice constant is here. So lattice spacing. So now another fact to observe here. See this here we have this splitting of band. So these two bands are getting mixed here. Then once again it is getting splitted here. What is the reason that here we are having this split? Once again, to find out this reason, we need to take help of our, I think, +2 chemistry. You know, in the carbon atom and this, you have some hybridization. So hybridization of these orbitals. So you know this sp3 hybridization. So sp3 hybridization means, you know, this you have 4 so this kind of tetrahedron structure you might have seen earlier. So the angle, I think 109.5 degree. So this is the this sp3 hybridization. It is having this kind of formation. Now another thing here is when this forming this band, here we have 4n state and another 4n state we have here, and this is of course 2n state. And when discussing any semiconductor problem, so if I just consider, let me take different color maybe. When we will draw. So again, this is some another important comment regarding any device course. Like if we any device, if you don't, if you cannot draw band diagram of, or if you cannot understand any semiconductor device in terms of band diagram, you perhaps don't know the device properly. So again, this is not my word. This is I think one of Nobel laureate, I think 2000 Nobel laureate Herbert Kumar, Professor Kumar. He told this comment. Anyway, so you know that this band diagram is very important. So essentially, this your band diagram, what we will see often when discussing these devices. So this is the band diagram. So here actually, anyway, I should not have drawn straight continuous line. Anyway, so here we have this band diagram. So this is your conduction band and this is your valence band. So here at 0 Kelvin, all these above this band, you have this free, like there is no electron, no carrier, and all the electrons, everything is at 0 Kelvin. Remember, at 0 Kelvin. At 0 Kelvin, this band will be empty, completely empty of carriers or electron, and all the and this will be completely full at 0 Kelvin. So this is how the bands are performing, and in our device problem in the coming this module or this topic, we'll only discuss this particular this conduction band and the valence band. And remember another important thing, just we are considering the difference between this conduction band or this two band at the lattice spacing. So because all the semiconductor, let's say silicon, we'll consider the silicon has a 5.43 Armstrong of lattice constant. And at that lattice spacing or the atomic distance, what is the difference between your this empty state and the field state at 0 Kelvin? That we need to consider. So we don't need to consider here or here. Obviously, these are not possible sometimes. So this is a thought experiment. So after this, now how to get the carriers. So now you know this. Okay, another I think I have, or else I can draw here. So if I draw now once again, as I mentioned in the previous class also, many a times we need to discuss this semiconductor problem like with the help of the both band model as well as bond model. So now at 0 Kelvin, we have this completely empty this band above this conduction band and this field valence band. Now, how to get conduction? So once again, I think you know, but let us recapitulate the concepts. So, okay, in terms of bonds, you know, in the semiconductor, you have the covalent bonds. So what are the other bonds? You know there are ionic bonds. In sodium chloride, you might like from your chemistry knowledge, you know this is a ionic. There is an ionic bond. Again, there are metallic bonds. So these are the different types of bonds. Now the next thing is how like whether these bonds are these covalent bonds. Now, so in semiconductor we have covalence bond. Now these covalence bonds are really difficult. Like how good is this bonding between two atoms? So now whether these are strong bond or weak bond, and because see again you know that when you will break one bond, then only you will get free carriers. So this is in terms of band bond model, and in case of band model, you know that at 0 Kelvin you have completely empty this conduction band and field completely full of carriers valence band. Okay, now another just to complete this discussion, see, essentially when we are applying electric field, because when we will build our devices, so we will apply electric field. When we will apply electric field, so these bands, this conduction band and or the valence band will get some tilted. That means there will be some slope in the conduction band, valence bands. So we'll discuss like how this is representing or this. That means this way, this conduction band or valence band will. This is conduction band, valence band, or this way it will. Sorry, it will get tilted. Now, so if so, just for understanding, if this band, if this valence band is completely full of carriers, there is no vacancy. So then you will not be able to notice any carrier movement. So now to understand this very in a very crude way, I would say. So you can take the analogy. These analogies are very good to remember or to understand certain physical problem. So here we can take analogy of two water filled tube. So what is this water filled tube? So let's say we are taking two tubes. So in one case, so in this case actually, this conduction band here, the tube is completely empty, and this, in case of this valence band, the another tube which is completely full of water. Now, whether we tilt it or keep it horizontal, obviously, like will not be able to observe any movement of water. This is true. Now, in this case, like whatever will be the slope, so we'll not be able to see any movement of water if we consider completely empty tube, if we consider completely filled tube. Now, to observe any movement of water, what we can do, we can consider that we can take some partially filled tube in case of valence band, and also we can consider like some water in the conduction, some water in the tube in case of conduction band. This analogy. So don't get confused with this analogy. So I am just trying to discuss this phenomenon, just so that like it may be helpful for you to understand and remember. So if we partially full, later then we'll have a, let's say we will have some bubble inside this water tube in case of this valence band tube. So then if we tilt it, so then we'll see the movement of that bubble or that vacancy in the water tube. And then similarly, so here also, like another, okay, so similarly here in case of conduction band, that tube, when where we have just let's say we filled it with very minimum amount of water, so then that water droplet, let's say few droplets of water we have put inside this tube, so then those droplet will go down just due to the gravitational force, and similarly this droplet will go up. Okay, so also like the similar thing will happen, you know, in case of electrons and the holes. So this bubble inside this valence band, if we consider the conduction band and the valence band inside the crystal or solid state material, so this bubble is actually your hole, which is created due to the vacancy of electron. So if we take one electron from the completely filled valence band to conduction band, so then there will be a vacancy, which is essentially called as a hole. And once again, if you have some electron in your conduction band, so they can also move, and you know also that the direction of movement will be different. So that is why this water, this droplet as well as this bubble analogy in case of this electron and the hole is to some extent apt for this kind of analysis. Now, so in case of this bond model, you know how to create or how to show how your, let me take another. So how your electrons and holes are coming. So you need to break one covalent bond. So if we break one covalent bond, so then you will have one electron. And so this electron can move around. So this electron can, is free electron. And at the same time, this space, this space will get some positive charge. So this positive charge, so this is this positively charged, this space is actually called hole. So now the next point is electrons. As free electron, after breaking this bond, it can freely move within the crystal. Now how the holes are moving? So how the holes are moving? See, actually these bonds, these covalent bonds are shifting. What is this covalent bonds are shifting? Shifting means, see here we have one one electron, like a dot of one electron in this covalent bond. So then the adjacent bond can break, and this electron now can come here. So essentially what will happen is the vacancy will move to this region. So the positive charge or which we call as hole, it will move. So it will move in the opposite direction of your electron flow. And here another interesting thing is, see, when breaking this bond, we are generating electron hole pair, and then this, let's say this particular one, so we have one hole and one electron, and now that hole is propagating within this crystal. So then once again we need to break one bond and make another bond. So what is the probability of this process? Do you need to provide the additional energy? Because remember why I am mentioning this point, breaking one covalent bond takes lot of energy. Again, in this this diamond, it takes this is, you know, one of the hardest materials. So this breaking one bond is not very simple, or like you need to provide lot of energy. But how can this hole move after breaking one particular bond? Let's say, do you need to provide another additional amount? So here you have provided energy to break this particular bond. Now, do you need to provide another this same amount of energy to break this bond to move for this movement of hole? So essentially, it is not the case. So the thing is, breaking one bond and making at the same time making another bond is lot more easier, or is favorable, you can say, than just breaking one bond. Okay, and once again I am repeating this statement because this is important in this solid state discussion. So breaking bond and making bond is more favorable than just breaking one covalent bond. So that is why, so this whole movement is easier than breaking one bond and creating electron hole pair once again. So in terms of favorable this process, I am just discussing this. Okay, so this is anyway, this is something quantum mechanics and all things are there. Okay, I'll not go into that detail. So this is how we are creating this bond and this making this electron hole pair. Now the next discussion is see. Okay, maybe we can. Okay, with this generation. So this is a thermal generation. So at 0 Kelvin, you have you know that this is completely empty and this is completely full. But when you will increase the temperature or due to the thermal energy, you can break this covalent bond, and then you can have electron in the hole, and the hole can move in that way, and electron, they are obviously free, they can move within the crystal. So the above obviously above 0 Kelvin, so at room temperature or at some finite temperature. Now the thing is, now you have electron hole this carrier. Now you have the carrier which can produce current. So is this like with the temperature you have the carriers? Now you have the carriers with the material. Now is this fine for you to build or fabricate device? The answer is no. Why? Because see, when you have generated this this electrons or electron hole pair due to the thermal energy, so then another reverse process will start. That is called, again, you know, this part we'll discuss in detail also. This condition is called, let's say your semiconductor is under steady state. So in steady state, from the term itself, you can understand that the all process is are countered by the a reverse process. So here, due to the thermal energy, let's say now this crystal is at room temperature 300 K. So this electron hole pair will get generated, but at the same time, due to this steady state condition, it will recombine. So the electron will fall on this empty space. That means essentially hole. So it will recombine. So this generation and recombination will be same in case of steady state process. Now the thing is, with this just simple generation and recombination, you can get carrier, but you cannot control the number of electrons and number of holes, because to fabricate device we sorry, E and N. So because to fabricate any device, you need sometimes predominantly P-type behavior, or where you have majority carrier holes, and sometimes N-type behavior, or where you have majority carrier electron. Now to have that, you need to dope it. So by doping, you can control this, or you can make one type of carrier majority carrier, and as well as you can control the carriers. Because okay, another thing, our overall objective, I would say, for this particular module is to find out that resistivity rho R equals to rho L by A. So now to find out this resistivity, one of the parameter is the carrier concentration. So that carrier concentration, how it can be dominated by the P or hole, or how it can be dominated by the electrons, that will be decided by the doping. Now in case of doping, let me go to, so in case of doping, once again, just if I quickly write, so you know this carbon, silicon, these are all group 4 element, carbon, silicon, germanium, you have I think tin here. Then you know group 5 we have nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, and group 3 we have boron, aluminum, sorry, gallium, and indium. So in case of doping, what we are doing, so in that if we consider that previous bond model, and once again if we try to draw by replacing one particular silicon atom with let's say arsenic atom, so then you know that you will have this kind of bonding. So here you have this another. So here we have one free electron. So this is arsenic. So that means it has 5 electrons in the outermost orbital. So the out of this 5 electron, 4 will make this covalent bond with the other neighboring silicon atom. Now this one additional electron will remain as free, and this electron will contribute to that N-type behavior that you know already. Now the question here, how strongly this electron is bounded to this particular atom, to this arsenic atom, because this is a valence electron of arsenic atom. Now you need to take out this electron in order to have N-type semiconductor or N-type silicon. So now you need to obviously give certain amount of energy, because at 0 Kelvin, obviously these electrons you will not be able to take out from this arsenic atom, and this overall this arsenic doped silicon will behave as an insulator. There will be absolutely no conductivity, no carriers. Now, how tightly or strongly it is bounded to this particular atom. So because that will decide how easily we can dope this silicon using arsenic. So how to, in order to just quantify this, how to, so we can easily quantify. How to quantify this? So if we remember, just I'll write, I will not move back. So in the previous, I think previous class discussion, we calculated this total energy, electron energy, that Bohr model or hydrogen model discussion. So there we calculated this energy as, if we once again write that equation, h square, and then obviously that integer multiple that. So this energy we have calculated in case of that single atom, hydrogen atom. So now from this particular equation also we can calculate the amount of energy required to take out this electron. So what is the amount of energy we need to provide to this crystal so that we can take out this fifth electron, and so that we can have N-type silicon after doping it. So essentially this process is also called ionization. So why this is ionization? Because once we'll take this electron from this particular atom, so then this atom will be positively ionized, because obviously this it will have this additional proton, like electrically it will be positively charged atom. So remember, here one interesting so this ion, this is fixed. So I think if I don't know, like, so in so this ionized this atom, this is fixed, and this is also positively charged. So this positively charged area, which is essentially this ionized atom, arsenic atom in this case, this is fixed because this is a crystal. Here the atoms cannot move. So this is ion. And now another concept just before we discuss, that is a hole, where if you break this covalent bond, this another empty space will be generated, which will essentially carry this positive charge. So that positively charged area can move due to the shifting of this bond. So breaking another bond and making the previous one. So in that way, this hole can move. But remember, this ion, after this donating this fifth most electron, it cannot move. So in semiconductor or the solid state material, ions cannot move. So but this holes and electrons, obviously electrons can move and holes can move, because this is also positively charged ion, or like a particle, this arsenic ion, and your hole is also positively charged. But this arsenic ion cannot contribute to your current, but hole can contribute to your current. And you just seen that how these holes are moving within the crystal, but making and breaking the bonds, covalent bonds. Now come to this energy, this quantification. So how to quantify this? If you look at this all this value, so only this particular this guy, this permittivity or the dielectric constant will change compared to the your this hydrogen atom. So in this dielectric constant of your silicon is, I think, 11.6 or 11.3, something around. So this is a relative dielectric constant, epsilon r. So epsilon r for silicon, sorry, right here. Only silicon is your 11.6 something. So now if we just mention this 11.6 here, this overall this value will just be scaled down, and because in the denominator we will have 11.6 square, so then it will be something around 0.1 electron volt. Now this value, remember, sometimes these numeric values are important to get the overall feeling, like what is actually happening, what is why this is important, and how effective this is. Why I'm telling you this point? Because see, this is 0.1 electron volt. Now if we just consider that single atom of hydrogen atom, and hydrogen atom has one electron, so now that if you want to take out that electron, you need to provide 13.6 electron volt. Whereas only just providing this 0.1 electron volt of energy, you can easily take out this electron from your arsenic atom, that fifth most electron. So this doping, after doing this doping, so this is a lot easier to get the conductivity or to get the carriers in case of this doped semiconductor. So okay, so this is your doping. Now in terms of band discussion, so how to represent it in this energy band diagram, this doping phenomena. So the doping, you know, so here we have this, here we have considered arsenic, that is a donor. So this is, you know, donor, and these are all acceptor. So here actually this is the value of so this is a ED. So this is your EC conduction band, this is valence band, and this is the donor energy level. So after donating this electron from here to here, that means this electron. So after donating this electron, there is nothing. This again, remember, after donating this electron, this arsenic atoms or this ionized arsenic atom will not move. That is why this energy level we are showing within with the dots. Here I am not drawing this donor level continuously. So it represents that after donating this electron, so when this electron will move to this conduction band and will be absolutely free, so then this ions will not be able to move. So there is this difference. So that is why I am showing it using this dot. And similarly, again, you know, I think once again, if we have, let's say, aluminum here. Let me take. So once again, quickly, if I draw silicon, silicon, silicon. Okay, here actually we have will not have one particular bond, but okay, let's say this bond is not here. So here we have this vacancy. That means, you know, this aluminum has a 3 outermost electron. So that 3 outermost electron with the 3 neighboring this atom will complete this your covalent bond. But in one with one atom, one silicon atom, so there will be vacancy, and that vacancy is essentially that is your so there, so that vacancy again, I think, let me complete this diagram, then it will be easier. So they are all silicon. So by breaking this bond, let's say one electron moved to here. So then this is all filled. Now when these electrons are coming after breaking another adjacent to this bond, so this overall this thing is getting negatively charged. So now this overall this these ions or these atoms are getting negatively charged or negatively charged ions. So this thing in the band diagram you can show by this way, like this is a acceptor energy level, like donor energy level, but it is closer to your valence band because it donates one vacancy. It donates one vacancy, so that is why it donates one holes here. So you know this, you can say like this electron moved from here to here, and then just electron gets like here electron will not move. Remember this point. When you have electron from this donor to here, or even when you have this thermal generation electron move from this valence band to conduction band, so here electron can move, they are conduction electron. But when you have this one electron moving from your field valence this band to this acceptor level, so here this atoms or this aluminum atom gets ionized to negatively ionized, and then here you have this vacancy created. So here you have electron, here you have this vacancy created, and this vacancy within this valence band, it can move. But remember this electron, it will not be able to move now. Okay, so this is the difference between your conduction band, this N-type doping and P-type doping. Now the next important discussion, just perhaps in the last discussion today. So if we keep on increasing the temperature, so this in this discussion and the previous discussion, if we keep on just increasing this temperature, what will be the behavior of the carrier? So how the carriers, number of carriers will change, because we know that if we increase the temperature due to the thermal energy, this covalent bond which will start to break. Now how it will change? Now how the carrier concentration will change with the increase in the temperature. So if we just try to draw that, sorry again, with the temperature, how the carrier concentration, so both in like electron as well as hole, how it is changing. Now if we consider that we have not doped our semiconductor, so again this is another discussion. I hope you know, in terms of semiconductor there are two types of semiconductor in terms of doping, sorry, in terms of doping or this carrier, this behavior, you have two types of semiconductor. One is intrinsic, another one extrinsic. So you know that in intrinsic semiconductor you have not doped this semiconductor, and in extrinsic semiconductor you have doped. No doping, no doping, and here you have doping. So another important thing, just for the completion of this intrinsic extrinsic definition I am mentioning here. So not only that doping, this intrinsic carriers, this intrinsic semiconductor will not have any defect, because many a times in this advanced semiconductor it has been observed this defects contributes lot of carriers. Not only that thermally generated this covalent bond and this doping, all that. So this defects. So then similarly this your extrinsic semiconductor, if you want to complete this definition, the semiconductor without doping, without defect is called this extrinsic semiconductor. So now if we consider this intrinsic semiconductor, what will be the behavior of this carrier concentration if we increase the temperature? So it will be something like this. So it will keep on increasing with the temperature exponentially. Okay, now this is in case of intrinsic. Now in case of extrinsic, what will happen? It will take this kind of this graph is tilted. So first it will keep on increasing, then it will be flat. That means the carrier concentration will remain constant. After some time, it will take this. Once again, it will follow the extrinsic behavior. Intrinsic behavior. So this is in case of extrinsic semiconductor, and this is in case of intrinsic semiconductor. So this is how the carrier's concentration will change with the temperature. So I'll stop here. I'll discuss. I'll start next class. That means tomorrow with discussing this particular behavior. So I'll stop here, and please let me know if you have any doubt, any question. Okay, I guess Juvraj is here. So you had this question related to this Schrodinger's equation and this Bohr model, right?
Yes, sir, I did yesterday.
Yeah. So this discussion actually, anyway, if we can adjust timing, so we can discuss, because this Schrodinger equation is different. Here we are trying to discuss this band, how the bands are forming, and the simplest way to discuss is this Bohr model. And obviously, if you want to discuss electron behavior, complete electron behavior in solid, you need to understand this Schrodinger equation. So that is one thing. Another thing is, this Bohr model came just to discuss, this all the atoms has some light absorption and emission property. The atoms will absorb some light and emit.
Right, at certain
So
frequencies than others.
yeah. So this thing, I think, if you know that it has been observed that Lehman, Balmer,
Yes,
those
yes.
are the bands. So just to discuss those bands and how these bands are forming, why in terms of wavelength we are not getting continuous light, like in all wavelength, why we are not getting light emitted from the some atom. So this is discussed, or this is explained in using this Bohr model. Actually, Bohr was trying to give some analytical model to those experimental relations. So Bohr model is good for that, but of course, to understand this electron behavior in solid, we need Schrodinger. So this is the thing. Again, we'll see because Schrodinger equation is something we need more discussion on quantum mechanics because just if you have anyway till. So in quantum mechanics, the fundamental principle of quantum mechanics, if you want to discuss, it can be discussed in a two way. So one is proposed by Heisenberg. Again, eventually, they came at the same time, 1920. So Heisenberg, and like that mathematics he followed is based on matrix. So that is why that is called matrix mechanics. Also, that uncertainty principle.
Yes, sir. Even
Heisenberg and all.
today, like when you
So
explain the, I think the interaction of two atoms, like what, like from a quantum mechanical perspective, if we use wave functions to describe anti-bonding and bonding orbitals, I think it would give us a more wholesome picture of what's going on at the
yeah,
atomic level.
that's absolutely true. That absolutely true. But see, that will take this or difficulty level of this course to another level. But at this stage, in which year you are?
So I'm in third year.
Third year. So it is true. Whatever you are saying is true. To completely understand this behavior, we need this Schrodinger and that. But wave equation and then discussing that, but that difficulty level will be altogether different. Again, as a part of this course, it will be difficult. But always like if you have any special question or anything, any thing like that, you can discuss with me. Like I'll be very happy to discuss on that topic also.
All right, great.
But
Thank you so much.
yeah, so these are the things. So Heisenberg, that wave, this then actually this Schrodinger equation, this Schrodinger came. He proposed this wave mechanics. So one is the metric mechanics, another one is the wave mechanics. So these are mathematical way. So Heisenberg took different mathematical way, and this Schrodinger took different mathematical way, and so this thing. So like anyway, so there are a lot of things we can discuss. Let me see if we can involve this part in coming discussion. ठीक है. Okay, any question, anything? Let me stop this recording. Stop.